It began as an ordinary Tuesday morning in Washington, D.C., as commuters hurried to work under sunny skies. Without warning, phone alerts and televisions crackled to life with an emergency broadcast. Breaking news banners flashed ominously of unidentified objects detected entering Earth's atmosphere. Pedestrians froze in place, gazing upward. Across the clear blue horizon, tiny glints of light resolved into terrifyingly enormous shapes. A collective gasp rippled through the crowds as the reality sunk in. A fleet of massive alien spacecraft were descending from the heavens. Panic erupted on the streets as people abandoned cars and ran for shelter. But there was nowhere to hide from the mammoth vessels effortlessly gliding into position over the Capitol. In perfect synchronization, they came to an eerie standstill above the most famous buildings and monuments, blotting out the sun. The true scale became gut-wrenchingly clear. Each ship was the size of a city, dwarfing even the Pentagon below. Smooth and metallic, with strange glyphs etched into their hulls, they were utterly alien in design. The unknown creatures inside had technology far exceeding human capabilities. Without warning, a booming voice spoke in every language simultaneously from the largest ship positioned over the White House. "Help us!" it pleaded ominously. The transmission repeated on loop, heard around the world. Speculation exploded about what extraterrestrial agenda lay behind this surreal and terrifying first contact event. Inside the West Wing, Secret Service agents urgently escorted President Joe Biden to the Situation Room bunker where an emergency meeting was already convening via video conference. Present were Russian President Vladimir Putin from his Kremlin office, Chinese President Xi Jinping inside the Great Hall of the People, French President Emmanuel Macron at the Élysée Palace, and British Prime Minister Boris Johnson hastily summoned to 10 Downing Street. Each leader was reeling in disbelief from their respective locations across the globe. But the gravity of the situation dictated they put aside all other concerns and tensions between their nations. With so much uncertainty and human lives at stake, it was imperative to coordinate an international response. On the massive screens, the imposing alien armada hovered silently as anxious military advisors highlighted just how helpless Earth's defenses were against such technology. Any rash actions could lead to catastrophic devastation if they were to attack. The leaders cautiously agreed to attempt establishing contact. The message indicated that they were requesting aid, but could that claim be trusted? At the United Nations headquarters in New York, Secretary General Antonio Guterres made an urgent address by video appealing for level heads. "Let us approach this peacefully and remind ourselves of our shared humanity in reaching out to the unknown," he implored the world. Inside Mission Control at NASA, scientists feverishly tried to establish a communication link with the alien ships. Broadcasting signals on all frequencies and in multiple languages, they repeatedly transmitted the message. "We hear your request for help. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." The world held its breath, transfixed with frightened anticipation about what might happen next with extraterrestrial visitors of incomprehensible power hovering silently overhead. Inside the cavernous interior of the alien flagship, panicked crowds of the Zentradi race gathered in desperation. Once a technologically advanced civilization on a thriving homeworld light years away, environmental collapse had forced evacuation of their entire population on massive migration fleets. Conditions were grim within the congested vessels meant for military use, not housing refugees. Food and resources were scarce after years adrift in space searching for a new home. Many Zentradi had perished already, with more lives at risk each passing cycle. Their leader, Britai Kredonik, felt the heavy burden as hope dimmed. When long-range scanners detected electromagnetic signals and primitive satellite networks orbiting the distant planet Earth, Britti ordered an intercept course and rallied his people. Perhaps they would find compassion from these newly discovered life forms. After a grueling month-long journey near light speed, they arrived at the Blue World. Britti composed and broadcast the message, pleading for sanctuary in all languages detected from Earth. As expected, pandemonium erupted below at their imposing arrival. But to his surprise, the humans displayed restraint and intelligence by cautiously reaching out instead of attacking. Inside the UN assembly now linked to the alien ship, Secretary-General Guterres greeted Britti via video transmission. Britti was shocked to see many diverse human factions unified under one body. Guterres explained they sought peaceful solutions through cooperation. Moved by humanity's compassion and wisdom, Britti made an impassioned plea describing his people's desperation. He knew it was audacious asking for aid when resources were likely limited on Earth. But Britti also sensed the goodness within these humans along with their potential. An alliance could be mutually beneficial. Addressing the UN Council, Britti confessed he expected hostility and violence. Yet the humans saw beyond differences to find understanding. There was much the Zentradi could offer technically, Britti stated, in exchange for temporary refuge and relief. He awaited their decision hopefully, knowing his own people's survival depended on it. Intense debate raged within the United Nations over how to respond to the refugees. Some representatives voiced suspicion, like Brazilian President Bolsonaro, who saw invaders to be destroyed at all costs. But Mexican President López Obrador argued they had a moral duty to help the displaced Zentradi. If humanity failed this test of empathy, Obrador warned, they risked catastrophe later when roles were reversed. After reviewing extensive data on the Zentradi and their dying homeworld, the Council ultimately ruled in favor of providing provisional aid and shelter. But settlement plans and resource allocations must be strategic. World leaders would continue analyzing the aliens' capabilities closely for any deception. Britti breathed deep in relief at the news. Though some human factions clearly still distrusted the Zentradi, the UN decree of support meant survival for now. He vowed to repay such unexpected kindness one day. Officers were immediately dispatched to begin orderly transportation of refugees to the surface for processing and care by human relief agencies. For the first time in years, his people would have solid ground under their feet and freedom from hunger. There was hope again. In the months following the UN's decision to provide sanctuary, a massive coordinated effort unfolded to integrate the Zentradi refugees across Earth. Carefully regulated ships transported the aliens from orbit to designated zones worldwide. Sprawling encampments were rapidly assembled by international aid groups, equipped with temporary housing, sanitation, and medical facilities. Tens of thousands of Zentradi were relocated to begin new lives far from the cramped spacecraft that had been their prison. The camps allowed screening of new arrivals while attempting to meet basic needs. Zentradi physicians and engineers were recruited to assist. Though conditions were still sparse compared to Earth standards, for most refugees it was a vast improvement. They marveled at the open sky, fresh water, and green growing things after too long in cold space. With huge numbers involved, tension sometimes flared with local human populations despite UN efforts. Misunderstandings occurred on both sides that often turned to fear or anger among communities suddenly forced together. But progress was made through cooperation. Young Zentradi and human volunteers stepped up to serve as cultural liaisons, helping build bridges. The shared hardships fostered empathy between the two groups, and for many humans, contact with the aliens was exciting, an opportunity to learn. Overseeing the resettlement, the UN pursued integration strategies granting Zentradi agency and self-governance where possible. Zentradi technical expertise could be a boon for Earth and help pay back humanitarian aid. Their advanced engineers partnered with SpaceX to construct clean energy grids, reducing resource strain. Knowledge exchanges produced revolutionary gains for human medicine, agriculture, materials science, and manufacturing. Linguists delighted in decoding the Zentradi language, discovering an intricate verbal and written legacy. Anthropologists gained profound insights into Zentradi history, culture, and physiology to further mutual understanding. As conditions stabilized, a bold strategy took shape. Human and Zentradi space agencies would collaborate to construct a permanent autonomous Zentradi colony on Mars, easing residual population pressures on Earth. This huge endeavor required commitment from NASA, SpaceX, the ESA, CNSA, and more alongside leading Zentradi. 5 years after the arrival, the completed Zentradi metropolis gleamed red under the thin Martian atmosphere, realized by the combined efforts of two civilizations. It stood as a symbol of possibility when different peoples worked in concert. As the colony celebrated first light, even the doubters had to acknowledge the benefits and good faith the newcomers offered.